Hello, my dudes. Welcome back to another episode of Psychology 101. It is April, 13th, 12th? Not really sure. But anyhow, it's getting closer because my test is on May 12th, I believe. Yeah. So, I need to get my ass moving, and I just spent 30 seconds not doing that. So let's get started. Unit 5, Cognition, which is memory, thinking, and intelligence. First, we're going to talk about studying and building memories. A memory is the persistence of learning over time through the encoding, storage, and retrieval of information. That is the process of memory, not what a single memory is. Then there are 3 steps of memory according to information processing models. There's encoding, which is step 1, and that involves getting information into our brain. Step 2 is storage, which involves retaining that information. And step 3 is retrieval, which is getting the information back out later. Parallel processing is the processing of many aspects of a problem simultaneously, the brain's natural mode of information processing for many functions. What happens to the neurons in your brain every time you learn something new? They change, forming and strengthening pathways that allow you to interact with and learn from your constantly changing environment. Forming memories is another 3-step process. Step 1 is sensory memory, the immediate, very brief recording of sensory information in the memory system. Then step 2 is short-term memory, activated memory that holds a few items briefly, such as the 7 digits of a phone number while dialing before the information is stored or forgotten. Long-term memory is the relatively permanent and limitless storehouse of the memory system. It includes knowledge, skills, and experience. Working memory, or short-term memory, is a newer understanding of short-term memory that focuses on conscious active processing of incoming auditory and visual spatial information, and of information retrieved from long-term memory. So then, when we build memories, or do the encoding part of them, my binder is being difficult. Hold on a second. There we go. You'll ever have that moment when your binder is very full of pages and then you turn the page and it doesn't want to turn? Yeah, that was this. Okay, so encoding. Explicit memory or declarative memory is memory of facts and experiences that one can consciously know and declare, which is encoded through effortful processing, which is encoding that requires attention and conscious effort, like what I'm doing right now, which is studying. Implicit or non-declarative memory is retention independent of conscious recollection, of conscious recollection, which is encoded through automatic processing, which is unconscious encoding of incidental information, such as space, time, and frequency, and of well-learned information such as word meanings. We have then types of sensory memories, which is we have iconic memory, a momentary sensory memory of visual stimuli, a photographic or picture image memory lasting no more than a few tenths of a second, for instance, flashing letters on a screen. Echoic memory is a momentary sensory memory of auditory stimuli. If attention is elsewhere, sounds and words can still be recalled within 3 or 4 seconds. For example, a teacher asking why you didn't pay attention. You know, sometimes when you're doing something and then the teacher is like, what did I just say? And you're able to answer them even though you were doing something else. How many things can short-term memory hold? About 7 information bits. Ways to help effortful processing, or to help you remember something. Different ways to do that. We have chunking, which is organizing items into familiar manageable units, often occurs automatically. For example, letters, words, and phrases, or like stanzas of a poem. Mnemonics, which is spelled Mnemonics, but you say it mnemonic, I believe. Memory aids, especially those techniques that use vivid imagery and organizational devices. For example, Roy G. Biv helps you remember the colors of the rainbow, which are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Fun fact, Roy G. Biv is a villain in the Flash's universe, which is DC. Hierarchies are composed of a few broad concepts divided and subdivided into narrower concepts and facts. For instance, the way that these notes are written, which is how my teacher set them up for us, like at the beginning of the school year, but also just like the outline of any book, that's how like hierarchies are. Well, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, cool. Then we have the spacing effect, which is the tendency for distributed study or practice to yield better long-term retention than is achieved through mass study or practice, which is why I'm studying right now, because actually I find that the last few days before a test, like the night before a test, I won't study at all. I'll just try and sleep an extra long amount of time, because, memories are locked in when you're sleeping. And also because I feel like if I'm stressing about it, I'm not going to do as well. For me to do good on a test, it's better for me to be relaxed, because that will help me get the information like recall than it is for me to be cramming in at the end, because then I'm just going to be like stressing about stuff and not really even thinking about the information. Obviously, different people have different ways of learning, so if that doesn't work for you, you should not do it. Just do what works for you. And then testing effect, enhanced memory after retrieving rather than simply rereading information. So if you cover up the vocab word, you read the definition, and then you're like, okay, what's the vocab word? Then you say the vocab word, and then that's testing versus just reading the vocab word and then the definition. So I'm not using the testing effect right now. Then we have levels of information processing. Shallow processing, which is encoding on a basic level based on the structure or appearance of words. For example, a word's letters or sound. Deep processing is encoding semantically based on the meaning of the words. Tends to yield the best retention. For example, I guess a word's meaning. So the difference between shallow processing and deep processing would be that you remember a word has, like, when you forget someone's name, if you process it shallowly, you might just remember, it starts with a P, or there's like a hard consonant sound in the middle. But if it was deep processing, you would remember, I remember it because it's their name, or I remember it because they told me what it means. And then over time, which is better for your memory, obviously deep memory. Just because, if you just remember the echoes of things, it's not super helpful. Okay, memory storage and retrieval. What's the capacity for long-term memory? It's essentially limitless. The Inside Out movie is actually, pretty accurate in that. What part of the brain lays down new explicit memories, like names or events? The hippocampus. What happens to memories while you are sleeping? They are processed and stored. And what kinds of memories does the cerebellum form? Implicit memories created by classical conditioning. What kind of memories does the basal ganglia form? Procedural memories for skills. Which is important to know, because you can forget like facts and stuff, but like names or what some things looks like, if you're like, I don't remember, like, people can forget what faces look like if they have a brain injury, but you can like when you type without looking, you remember because it's muscle memory. Or like people are like, oh, it's like riding a bike, you never forget. And you don't forget because it's muscle memory. Unless you have a traumatic brain injury, and then that makes it harder in that specific area. But some people have brain injuries that make it so that they forget how to talk, or that they can't they can't recognize who people are anymore, but they can still do all the stuff that they were able to do. I don't know which one would be easier to live with. I hope personally that you don't have to go through having a traumatic brain injury. If you are dealing with that, I'm sorry. And I hope you're having a good day at least. Flashbulb memories are a clear memory of an emotionally significant moment or event. And the amygdala is involved in emotional memories, or amygdala. I say it how I read it in my head. And then they asked you to describe an especially strong emotional memory you can remember about yourself. And I wrote that I had like an anxiety attack at a dance because it was just a lot and I was going through a thing. At the time, it was, I mean, I still remember it now, but I just like, it was a lot closer to when it happened then. So now I would pick something different probably. Long-term potentiation, or LTP, is an increase in a cell's firing potential after brief, rapid stimulation, believed to be a neural basis for learning and memory. Okay, and now we're going to look at retrieval. So there are 3 different measures of retention, or measures of like how much you actually remember of something. So there's recall, a measure of memory in which a person must retrieve information learned earlier, as on a fill in the blank test. Recognition, a measure of memory in which the person needs only identify items previously learned, as on a multiple choice test. Or relearning, a measure of memory that assesses the amount of time saved when learning material again. What is the point to remember about Ebbinghouse's learning experience? We remember more than we recall. So, if you might do better on a recognition test than you might do on a recall test because you know the answer, but you don't recall it. So you know the answer, it's in there, but it just doesn't come to you at the time when you need to write it down. Priming is the activation, often unconsciously, of particular associations in memory, which, for instance, priming would be like if you chewed gum while you were studying something and you chewed the same flavor of gum while you were taking the test on it, it might actually help you remember the answers that you were studying. But that might not be something that you were thinking about actively when that happened. State-dependent memory is what we learn in one state may be more easily recalled when we are in that state again. Similar to priming, but state has more to do with like, I believe state has more to do with like mental state, like the overall vibe, not just your mood, but your vibe. They're 2 different things. That's not a science thing, that's just a me thing. But also probably like if you're warmer at one point and you're warmer at another point, that will trigger a memory. Or it will be like a state dependent memory kind of. For let's say you were in a desensitization chamber. That's not what they're called, but you float in a saltwater bath and it's like cool and warm, and you like studying something in there. Then if you go back in there, it's gonna be easier for you to remember what you were studying before. Mood congruent is the tendency to recall experiences that are consistent with one's current good or bad mood. So when you're in a good mood, you're more likely to remember good things and then continue your good mood, versus when you're in a bad mood, you're more likely to remember bad things, which can make your bad mood worse. Which is why when you're mad at someone, you start remembering all the other things that made them that they did to make you mad in the past. And then serial position effect, our tendency to recall best the last and first items in a list. Forgetting, memory construction, and memory improvement. So, what is the difference between anterograde and retrograde amnesia? Anterograde amnesia is an inability to form new memories. Retrograde amnesia is an inability to retrieve information from one's past. The possible reasons we could forget something because of an encoding failure are age, for instance, being too young or too old, or not paying attention. Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve proved about how much time it takes to forget something, which is the course of forgetting is initially rapid and then levels off over time. When you have a retrieval failure, what is one way you could help yourself remember the information? Retrieval cues. Proactive interference is the disruptive effect of prior learning on the recall of new information. For example, having trouble remembering a new password because of an old one. Retroactive interference is the Retroactive interference is the disruptive effect of new learning on the recall of old information. For example, not remembering new lyrics to an old melody. Repression, the basic defense mechanism that banishes from consciousness anxiety-arousing thoughts, feelings, and memories. Freud is a famous psychologist associated with repression. Memory construction errors. Reconsolidation is replacing the original memory with a slightly modified version every time we replay it. Misinformation effect is incorporating misleading information into one's memory of an event. And Elizabeth Loftus is the psychologist associated with this. Source amnesia is attributing to the wrong source an event we have experienced, heard about, read about, or imagined, at the heart of many false memories. Deja vu, the eerie sense that I've experienced this before. Cues from the current situation may unconsciously trigger retrieval of an earlier experience. Is it easy to tell real memories from false ones? Not at all. Improving memory. Suggestions to help you improve your memory while studying. Rehearse repeatedly, make material meaningful, activate retrieval cues, use mnemonic devices, minimize interference, sleep more, test your own knowledge, both to rehearse and to find out what you don't yet know. Thinking, concepts, and creativity. Cognition. All the mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating. Concepts. A mental grouping of similar objects, events, ideas, or people. Prototypes. A mental image or example of a category. Matching new items to a prototype provides a quick and easy method for sorting items into categories. For example, comparing feathered creatures to a prototypical bird, such as a robin. Creativity, the ability to produce novel and valuable ideas. Convergent thinking, narrows the available problem solutions to determine the single best solution. For example, intelligence tests. Divergent thinking, expands the number of possible problem solutions. For example, creativity tests. How many uses can you think of for a brick? Do you consider yourself a creative person? Why or why not? That's just a question that she put in there for you to think about for yourself. I'm not going to read what I answered because it's probably obvious. 5 components of creativity. 1. Expertise, a well-developed base of knowledge. 2. Imaginative thinking skills, the ability to see things in a novel way, to recognize patterns, to make connections. 3. A venturesome personality, seeks new experiences, tolerates ambiguity and risk, perseveres in overcoming obstacles. 4. Intrinsic motivation, being driven internally. 5. A creative environment, sparks, supports, and refines creative ideas.